Hello and welcome to another episode of the Paperstac Podcast. My name is Burky and this is Rick Allen.
The man, the myth, the legend, that's what they call me. I'm just the eye candy, really.
Yeah, yesterday I got to try Rick's ice plunge. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Cold, yes, cold plunge. It's
cold. Yeah, I got cold plunge. Yeah, I guess there was no ice.
No, there's no ice in there, but you just, 47 degrees, you go sit in the water. Takes your breath away to start with.
Yeah.
It's cold.
It was cold, but now I want one, so. But
it's good. It's weird. I was reading about it. I was like, oh, this looks good. I think I want to do it. And then I built one. I didn't buy one just because, they're like $4,000, $3 or $4,000. I'm like, I don't, as a hobby or something that I'm kind of testing out. So I built one out of I bought a brand new ice chest freezer and kind of lined it. And I started doing it and it's like, man, once you get out of it,
yeah, you
feel like so good. And I'm talking within 30 seconds of being out and like wrapped in a towel, you're like, man, I feel so. Maybe your body's like, yeah, you're not going to die of hypothermia. We're going to release some endorphins for you. You feel great, but
maybe it's not like that.
I don't know, but it's awesome. I love it.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Hello, viewers. Quick observation. In our YouTube analytics, I can see that 85% of you haven't hit the subscribe button. I'm sure you're aware, but subscriptions help scale this channel. It helps us get better guests to bring content to you, build momentum to build a larger audience, and to keep our spirits up to let us know that we're providing good content that you appreciate. So I want to ask you a favor. If you watched this channel before and you've enjoyed hearing Rick and I talk about note investing and have gained some knowledge from this channel, could you do us a favor and please hit the subscribe button? With that, we promise to keep providing better and better content to help you further explore the note investing space. Thank you so much. Now back to the podcast. So today we have a topic that's kind of interesting. It came from a question that happened on the site where a buyer reached out to a borrower, person in the house.
Ooh, did he have permission?
No.
Ooh.
Well, no. So, I was talking with the person, the buyer, and I was just like, hey, if you can reach out to the buyer if you have permission from the seller, but please always ask the seller first.
Right.
And then so we were talking back and forth, and he's like, well, when are you able to reach out to the borrower? I was like, performing. There's companies that do that. They reach out to the borrower and they do like a borrower interview. They ask the seller, hey, can I get the borrower's information? And they do that. They do an interview.
So you're talking. There's note buyers out there who will say, hey, I need to conduct a borrower interview prior to pulling the trigger and closing on this.
Fnac does that.
Fnac does it. I know Colonial did it. Yes, that's.
So, but then it was like, okay, this one was non-performing. I was like, I don't think that's ever appropriate. So I was like, that should probably be done by an attorney or a servicer. Actually, I don't think you should ever, if you're going to buy the loan, there's probably not a chance that you should ever talk to the. But I didn't know the exact specifics of that. And I didn't know how that falls into like how I could screw up a court case or. So I was like, this could go deep.
Well, it can be looked at as debt collection, right?
What's that?
Reaching out to the borrower is like you're reaching out to them to collect a debt, and so.
Yeah.
If they have an attorney and you do it, you could create a big problem there. So I could understand why somebody getting into the space would do that.
You did that.
If I'm going to out myself, I'd like to be the one that fucking outs myself. I don't need you doing it, spreading my shit all over the airwaves here. Yes, the first note I ever bought, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I didn't even know what a collateral file was at the time. It was like, you've probably all heard the story, but I reached out to the borrower once I got an agreed upon price. Mm-hmm. And prior to even actually signing a contract, say, hey, I'm about to buy your loan, is what I told them. Mm-hmm. Are you interested in signing a deed in lieu of foreclosure? I at least knew what that was. And they said yes, so I said, I'll definitely buy this loan then. Mm-hmm. I bought the loan, wired the funds, kept the conversations going. Again, this was circa March of 2012. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't know any better. I didn't know it. So I understand how somebody coming into this space could make that mistake, but it is definitely frowned upon. What happened in this situation? Tell me a little bit more about the situation.
The buyer reached out to the borrower. I don't know what was said.
And how did the seller find out?
The buyer said it in the transaction. Hey, I reached out to the borrower. It looks like they want to follow some direction. And so the seller reached out to us like, hey, this could really screw up stuff for me because it's non-performing and there's like an active case and it's a weird one. It's really interesting. The reason why they're non-performing is insane, but...
What's the reason? You can't lead me with that. I'm sure they want to know, so tell me what's going on.
The borrower wanted to pay for a boob job instead of paying their mortgage, and so they just stopped paying their mortgage. I was like, I've heard it all now. I've heard it all. Like, I was like,
I mean, I thought that those days were done, but apparently they're not. We had a borrower once say, I was like, why'd you guys stop paying your mortgage? Like, my neighbor stopped paying. I go, why'd your neighbors? I don't know. They just couldn't afford it. So you decided to stop paying? Like, yeah.
That makes no sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense. I was like, so you could afford it? Yeah, we could afford it, but they stopped paying. So we're like, well, we're not going to pay if you're not going to pay. I was like, oh, wow, okay.
And that puts a different meaning to keeping up with the Joneses.
We're going to take your house from you now, or you're going to reinstate. So, all right, well, that's...
Yeah, so it's a non-performing loan. So that's
non-performing loan.
That's where it's different than a performing loan.
Okay, let's stop right there. If you're buying, whether you're buying loans on Paperstac or you're buying them from a broker-dealer or you're buying from somebody else's trade desk, you should never, ever reach out to the borrower unless you have the consent. Written consent would be ideal. You would want to do that to protect yourself, but you should have written consent from the seller that you can go conduct an interview.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's just bad. That's just bad.
So when it's performing, nothing really bad could happen because they're paying their mortgage, right? And everything's fine.
Sure.
But when it's non-performing, that's where it gets hairy. Because that could...
Well, you shouldn't do it ever, like unless the seller says, yeah, go right ahead.
Right. But let's just say the seller said, yes, go ahead.
I mean, you can do it. You've got the seller's consent.
Right.
If you've got the seller's consent, you can do it. I mean, if I'm a seller and it's a non-performing loan and I'm in active litigation or something like along those lines, I'm not authorizing you to talk to the borrower.
Right.
You know, it has happened. Mm-mm. I've done it. Yeah. Where, as a matter of fact, the deal I spoke to you about on, the South Carolina one that I found on Paperstac where I bid almost up to the UPB was non-performing. I was reading through the servicing notes and I saw that they were about to do a deed in lieu and they stopped. And I saw the house was vacant. So I asked the sellers, like, hey, can I reach out to the borrower and ask her a few questions? He's like, yeah, go right ahead. And so I did, and the borrower ended up, I get them on the phone and they told me, yeah, I was going to sign a deed in lieu, but I didn't like the attorney. So that's why I stopped working with him. The attorney was an a-hole is what she said, so...
And then you nailed it out of the park on that one, right?
Oh, yeah, I did. But the point is I talked to the seller about it. I said, hey, I'd like to reach out to the borrower and conduct an interview. He's like, if you can get her on the phone, good luck. Go right ahead. I was like, okay. So we did, got her on the phone. So,
but that was non-performing.
It was non-performing.
But was it in an active litigation?
No.
No,
it was not.
So active litigations were, first off, consent, but then also active litigation.
Consent, but there's a couple things, like if the borrower has an attorney, you should never be speaking to the borrower. Even if you own the loan, you shouldn't be talking to the borrower unless they call into your loan servicer, right? Because they have legal representation.
Right.
You need to go through the legal representation. So that's one thing, but if it's in a bankruptcy, you're not allowed to talk to them because you're trying to collect a debt for a loan that's already in bankruptcy. So there could be some definite shaky ground, to say the least, if you're reaching out to borrowers, period. Like you said, on performing stuff, you're reaching out to somebody who's got a performing loan, you can set it with the seller. I don't know what FINAC does when they talk to them, but just want to, usually if I were doing it, I would be calling to talk to them and say, hey, just want to verify that all this is right and let you know I'll be buying your loan and nothing's going to change. And, if you'd like, we can have an estoppel sign so you have a piece of paper showing that this is what your loan details were at the time you sold it. That would be something I would do if I were going to conduct a borrower interview.
Right, and a lot of times you might want to conduct a borrower interview because of wanting to have an estoppel sign.
Yes, a lot of times I would go through the seller, but you can do it and just say, hey, as long as the seller approves you to talk to him, I would let the seller know I'm just going to go out there, verify all the loan details, and then I'm going to have them sign an estoppel. Mm-hmm. And I'll send it to you. You can sign it, or give it to the seller and say, here, you sign it, have them sign it.
I guess another ideal situation for reaching out to a borrower would be if, hey, I only buy deeds of trust. This is a CFD. I like everything about it except the CFD part. I'm switching over from a CFD to a deed of trust.
Sure.
I need to tell the borrower.
So just ask the borrower if they're on board with it. Hey, this is a contract for deed. I'd like to convert this into a traditional mortgage. You'll be on title at that point. You're not waiting for the deed. And just whatever your spiel is, that would be a reason to talk to somebody.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that kind of answers the questions. I mean, everyone.
If it's not in litigation, it's non-performing, you may want to just be reaching out to the borrower to get an idea of like, hey, where are they with regards to wanting to keep the property? If you can't get any servicing notes, you can't understand what's going on there. Hey, where are they? Do they really want to keep this? Do they want to do loss mitigation? Can they pay? Once you purchase it and send out the goodbye letters, there's like a 45-day cooling off period where you're not supposed to talk to the borrowers.
That's with non-performing?
Performing, non-performing. It's just, no.
What is to do with the?
It's just 45 days. It's in there that's meant for a cooling off period. So.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we got it. So I mean, overall, first the most important part is always have seller's consent, ideally in writing if you can.
Yeah, I would do it, and I would just say, hey. And FinAct usually gives a piece of paper that you sign that allows them to.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, so, and then, have the reasoning why you want to reach out, consent from the seller, and then usually if it's in any type of legal litigations or anything, that's a big no-no.
Keep your hands off, I would, just to be safe.
Just to be safe. And then, I guess it just boils down to that, huh?
Mm-hmm. So, but definitely don't just, under no circumstances should you ever just reach directly out to the borrower.
Yeah.
That's, for one, you'll probably never do business with that seller again.
Yeah.
And two, you could wind up in some hot water there.
Yeah, that's not good.
On the selling side, you just wouldn't want it either, right? You don't want somebody going and running their mouth to your borrower as you're selling their loan. If it's a performing loan and they don't know, it could cause problems. I mean, loans are sold all the time, but borrowers can get a little crazy if they don't understand what's going on. And the reality is most of them might not understand that their loan's being sold or it gets sold or it's even a thing. And they could think the deal's going to change. If it's owner financing, they're going to change my payment amount, this or that. So it's just like...
Yeah, I could see
it can really complicate the situation. And it could turn a good performing loan into a non-performing loan or into a payoff. That's happened in the past. Where
really?
Yeah. It kind of happened because the loan was sold and the borrower didn't really understand what was going on, so they panicked and just paid the loan off.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not with us, but, I've seen that happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that pretty much answers it.
That's it? That answers it, huh?
Yeah, I just wanted to have like a clarification because when we were having the conversation, I didn't know all the answers and I didn't want to provide stuff that wasn't truthful. I knew that you shouldn't do it when they're non-performing. I just didn't know the specifics like you do. So I was like, okay, well, this would actually make for a good topic. Because when other people watch this, they're like, oh, that's good to know. It's something you ideally wouldn't think of because you didn't think of it. No one.
I was new in the space, so and didn't.
It seems like a good idea when you're like, oh, I'm going to do my due diligence, and that seems like something that would come up.
Let me just go ahead and call this borrower real quick.
Yeah, that's some stuff. I mean, it seems like something it would be falling. I'm going to do this next and do this next, but that's where that's different. But yeah, I think this answers the question. So cool. Again, if you have your own questions or concerns or things you want us to cover, let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to cover that. And if you haven't yet, still wanting to learn about note investing, you can always check out the Paperstac Academy, which is a lot of great content filled with videos and calculators and contracts and discounts and simulators and case studies and just a whole bunch of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
So all his knowledge, him sitting in this room, I think.
Price is going up.
Yeah.
Doubling the price. $9.95 right now. It's going up to $19.97.
$19.97. So you're graduating. All right then. Well, that's it for this one. We'll see you on the next one. See ya.
Bye.